ahead and start. All right, so just for the camera, could you just state your name and spell it, please?
My name is Bob Harkins, Harkins. I'm the Associate Vice President for Campus Safety and Security at the University of Texas. I oversee the police department, fire, emergency management, environmental health and safety, and parking.
Great. And how long have you been with University of Texas?
In this job, I've been in this job since September of 2005.
Since '05. Okay, great. So a good while now. So just real briefly, I know we've heard the news reports. Most people have some idea about the bomb threat that occurred at UT. So just to put it simply, what happened at University of Texas on Friday?
Well, we got a call from an unknown source indicating that there were multiple bombs on campus that were set to go off an hour and a half later, or an hour and a half to 2 hours later, excuse me. We began a process that we always do in the event that we have strange calls like this, and that's trying to get validity in terms of any threats that are there. We talk to state officials, local officials, federal officials to see if there's any traffic out there that would implicate that we have some danger. We did normal police procedures in terms of trying to trace calls and all the other things that go behind that. Interviewed the person that had the call. Began a process of clearing all the buildings on campus with our building managers, and it kind of came down to we couldn't get all that done, and the decision was made then to evacuate the buildings. And we didn't evacuate the campus, we evacuated the buildings. What we wanted was everybody outside the buildings while we continued to evacuate the campus. And then later the decision was made just to go ahead and cancel classes for the day because some people left when it all began and didn't want to stand out in the rain. And in a short zone, that's kind of what happened.
Okay. Now, you hit on a couple things that I wanted to follow up and ask you about. Now, there's been a lot of hearsay or just, secondhand people hearing, oh, there's a bomb threat and not knowing what the call was. So I'm just curious, what actually was said in the call, what took place, and what kind of led you to believe this is a very serious problem?
I really can't discuss what was in the bomb call other than, the general nature that I just talked about. We take any call seriously, and you just got to run it down as many holes as you can to try and figure out, the validity of it. And we just couldn't get done what we felt was total protection of the campus in the time that the caller gave us, and so therefore we evacuated the buildings. That's about, the best I can do in terms of the details of the call.
Sure. Now, one thing that I can say was reported in the Statesman and other kind of major news sources here in Austin was something that was suspicious about the call was that it was somebody calling with a Middle Eastern accent and that it was a bomb threat, saying, I don't know any specifics, but it almost, you could infer that they're saying there's a bomb somewhere on campus.
Well, the person had an accent. There was a large debate of whether or not we could tell if it was Middle Eastern or Far Eastern or African or whatever. The reality is the person that received the call perceived it to be somebody that had an accent. We would more likely be better descriptive to say somebody had an accent and not try and be the linguistics, if you will, trying to figure out what. Yeah.
Okay.
So it better said that it was somebody with a foreign accent.
Okay. And will the tape recording be released at all?
I don't know if we have a tape recording of it. It didn't come into the police department. It came into a building on campus. So the caller that got the call reported it, and police went to that person then that took the call. It was a random phone throughout the campus. It had really no connectivity to campus safety, security, police, or fire, or EMS, or anything.
What department of the university was it?
It was in one of the other buildings around campus. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay. Now, there were also reports and in the Statesman and other sources saying that this call could possibly be linked to Al-Qaeda. And my question is, what evidence leads the UT Police Department and the university as well to believe that this hoax threat may be tied to Al Qaeda?
Well, we're all very conscious of what's going on in the world. So, anything that happens, you kind of, you're worried about something spilling over. I believe the individual did make an indication that he was from Al Qaeda, and you kind of go from there. If someone says they're from Al Qaeda, they speak with a foreign accent. You start heading down the road. Now, I was not on campus Friday, just so you know. I was at a meeting in Houston, so I was kind of directing things from a telephone far, far away, in a safe zone, if you will.
Okay. As far as the suspect themselves, what contact have you made with them? I know you said you traced the call and did all the normal police procedures.
We went through the tracing procedure.
Mm-hmm.
The status of the investigation is still ongoing, so we're really not doing a lot of talking about what contacts we've had, if any, or kind of any leads that we've got that are being investigated by state and federal and local officials.
Okay. And then earlier, when I asked you the first question, you had kind of elaborated on after you received the call, you of course notified the students and started evacuating the buildings on campus, and then you say you cleared the buildings on campus. Now, I just want a clarification. When you clear a building, what happens?
Well, there's two things that happen. Number one, we have a system in each building. We have somebody that's responsible for that building called a building manager. Those building managers are familiar with their buildings. We did not have enough police, dogs, etc., to do a screen of 166 buildings in any short amount of time. So what we asked was our building managers to do a sweep of their building to see if there was anything that looked unusual or strange or didn't fit, etc. So that was the initial clearance that we did of all the buildings. But we couldn't get all that done, so we then evacuated all personnel from the buildings to go outside and move away from the building. We then later went back and used our building managers to continue the sweep of the buildings to finally clear the buildings, if you will. But it's kind of, we almost ran out of time, and we dumped the campus and then cleaned it up on the backside.
And was there any sort of physical evidence that was collected on Friday that pointed to a suggested bomb threat or that activity linked with the phone call?
To the best of my knowledge, we haven't found anything. There was no suspicious packages found, nothing that would lead us to say, this is what it was.
Okay, so no physical evidence
No.
yet. Could you tell me which buildings at UT were the ones that were targeted?
There was no targeting. There are multiple bombs in multiple buildings on your campus.
I see.
And that's what
vague, yeah.
Somebody says, hey, there's bomb in this building, then you kind of deal with that. And we deal with that in a very direct way. 165 buildings, which one? And so that was what kind of led us to an awkward procedure in terms of not being able to sweep it with either our bomb dogs or our uniformed personnel, and we used the next step down from that, which was kind of people that occupy the buildings to look, because we thought that was our quickest path to find out if A, we've got a problem, or B, we're clear.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. Sounds like you guys did a good job there. Let's see, what is I going to ask? So as far as the suspect goes, at this point, are there any leads as to an individual or a group maybe that was involved with this?
I can't comment on the ongoing investigation. Sorry.
You can't comment. Okay. All right. So beyond the clearings and the personnel that were already in the building and UTPD assisting in those clearings, there wasn't any other police agency involved?
Well, there was, state. We don't function alone here.
Okay.
We were right next to the Capitol, so I know we had Capitol Police helping direct traffic here. We had Austin Police Department helping us control the perimeter of the campus, and then we had other state and federal agencies involved in the background investigation that kind of do that type of. We try and reach out to every activity and every entity, around in Travis County and in the state and at the federal level.
Okay, and could you tell me which federal agencies were involved?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
It's just, it's the normal federal agencies that are involved.
Probably like an FBI or
Well,
some of those.
There's, whoever you would want me to go talk to at the federal level. Because we reached out to anybody and everybody. Hey, does anybody know anything?
Right.
And what we're looking for, was there any indications of any threats against universities and colleges that anybody knew about, or did anybody have any intelligence that would help us try and figure out, is this a real threat or is this is it a hoax?
Well, that's interesting you say universities plural, because I was reading that there were also similar threats simultaneously at North Dakota State University, I believe in Minot, North Dakota, and I was wondering, what was the tie there? Is there anything being investigated as far as the tie to other universities?
We haven't, and it was also there was another university, Valparaiso University, Valparaiso State University up in Indiana. And you start, and then I do not know, for example, yesterday LSU had a bomb threat, whether or not all that's connected or not. I don't know. We're trying to concentrate on, is there a threat to us? We've provided information to the agencies that should be kind of mapping that all together to see. We don't have a suspect, so we can't link. Was this guy an undergraduate at Valparaiso, got his master, and is mad at North Dakota State and us? I don't know.
Right.
We haven't been able to tie anything together.
Interesting. Okay. Now.
And that's assuming that there was some logic. There could well have been no logic at all, other than I picked 3 names out of a hat.
So at this point, of course you guys took it very seriously and went through all the proper procedure, but at this point, would you say is more of a hoax or a real threat?
Well, that particular activity that day ends up being a hoax. We found nothing. There was nothing here. There has been nothing here. Now, whether or not that was a test to see how we react, or whether or not it was someone just wanting the day off from school, why, we don't know. But we're very cognizant of the fact that the University of Texas is a very public, very well-known institution. We do a lot of research here. We have a lot of people from a lot of places here. So if somebody wants to target somebody or target something, we're a pretty representative institution. You got 50,000 people here. One of the biggest in the nation, so if you want to do some damage, you get a big bet. Okay, I guess UT would fit in that category.
Right. Definitely more likely to be targeted than a small school in a rural area or something like that.
Yeah,
I would think.
unless it depends if you're a bad person in terms of what you want to create. If you want to give the sense that nobody's safe, maybe a small little institution in Middle America is kind of what you might do. If you want to take down one of the big boys, then we're kind of it depends on the bang you want for the buck.
Right.
And I think that we've all figured out in our society right now that anything's possible. Who thought going to see a Batman movie at 12 o'clock at night, there would be any harm there? Lo and behold, a bunch of people got hurt.
Yeah, it can be a dangerous world. I definitely agree with you there. And just a couple last questions, and then we'll be through here. Just wanted to ask, as far as your policy for handling these kind of threats and major incidents that affect many buildings throughout the university, what is the current policy in place for dealing with that? Obviously, you've talked about the clearings, and I know you have a procedure for this, but what is the general policy, would you say?
This is a book called our Building Management and Restricted Access Plan. It's available on our website, on the Emergency Preparedness website. In this, we lay out 3 scenarios for evacuation. Evacuation number 1 is a planned scenario. We've got a storm coming in this afternoon, ice storm. We want to release the campus early. We want to dismiss. We want to evacuate, whatever term you want to put to it. But we know about it. It's well planned. In the back here, we show the maps in terms of the zones, and if the weather's coming, we could release zone 3, and then 4, and then 1, then 2, or 1, 2, 3, and 4 to kind of spread traffic out a little bit to get people out of here. So a planned evacuation, we have a plan. We also have a thing called Interstate 35 that runs right here, and there's a lot of chemical trucks and other type of trucks that go through there, or cars that it's not a question to me of if we ever have an accident. It's kind of a question of when are we going to have an accident. So we have kind of an unannounced evacuation, or an unannounced closure of the campus, which we tell everybody in here: leave your car, walk south, walk north, walk east, walk whatever it is, and get as far away from the campus as you can. We've got procedures to have buses come in if we have time, but my thought is if there's an accident there on Interstate 35 right here and the wind's blowing that way, I got to get these people out of here in a hurry. You don't have time to get your car. Just walk, just go this way. And we've got the capability of telling people which way to go and how far to get away. So that's the second scenario. The third scenario deals with fire drills and the evacuation of a building. And we have the in this plan the threat, or the guidance to get away from a building, evacuate a building, and it says move here 300 feet or 1 city block away from your building. We rehearse this because we have a fire drill in the building every year. Some of our residence halls, we have 2 fire drills a year. We feel pretty comfortable that we know how to evacuate individual buildings. What we hadn't done before this was evacuate all 165 at the same time. So that was kind of the new twist, if you will. But the plan lays out the process by which we close the campus, we restrict access to the campus, we close the campus. This is online, available for all of our personnel on campus. All of our building managers have copies of it, and so that's great. That's kind of the book. When somebody asks me, I didn't know how far away to get from the building, I said, right, look at the page, it tells you, let's rehearse it, let's train.
That's called the plan annex?
Yeah, it's called the Building Management Restricted Access Plan Annex. And the reason it's called a plan annex, it really is an annex to this book, which is the Emergency Management Plan, which kind of lays out all of the command and control and operational issues of how we manage emergencies. This is a supplement to this book in a little bit more detail. Then we ask each department, and the plans are in here, to prepare your evacuation plan for your building. Have floor monitors, have elevator monitors, the things that you need to get people out of a building in a safe way, get to an assembly area and get accountability.
Okay, great. And we're online, the UT's website, where exactly?
If you go to UT, and if you got a piece of paper there, I think we got.
Yeah, I'm missing out on paper today, but I can write it down now.
www.utexas.edu/safety/plans.
Okay. It's easy to
And
remember.
these are the 5 plans. This is the orange book that's here. That's the overall campus emergency plan. This is for infectious disease. This is for weather. This is for building management, restricted access, and then this is our business continuity plan.
Great. Thanks for showing that to me. That's really helpful. And then I guess following up on all this great material you're giving me access to here, because of this incident and because of, just fears over just the increase in shootings that we've seen lately, kind of what you're describing earlier, do you anticipate there being any changes to the policy as far as emergency management goes?
Well, anytime we have an incident, we do a series of what I call after-action reviews, and those after-action reviews, we go back and look at everything that went right and everything that went wrong. What do we need to tweak? What do we need to make better? I think in this case, what we need to make better is our messaging needs to be a little bit better. We we're a little slow in some messaging, and particularly email and text messages. Initial text message got out. We were slow because of some absence of some key personnel, so we need a little bit more depth in terms of getting those things done. The quickest way to get notification to the campus is text messaging. We have about 69,000 customers, if you will, in our text messaging system. It takes us about 5 minutes to, in this case, by the time we transmitted the message until everybody got it was a total of 3 minutes. But it's limited to 140 characters. 132 characters, 140 characters. I forget which one it is right now, but it's a small number of characters. When you send a text message, you can't go on.
Right, sure, it's just an alert, basically.
So the idea is that is an alert to tell people there's a danger, there's something going on, and kind of some action we want from them. Get in the building, get out of the building, whatever it might be. We then follow it up with social media, Facebook, Twitter, websites. We've got pagers, we've got email, we've got computers that have pop-ups on them to tell people that there's an emergency on campus. We have TV sets on campus that we can grab. We have various telephone numbers, 1-800 number, a 29999 number for information. All of these you try and manage to make sure you're communicating the same message, but you're getting as much information out there as you can. We were heavy on some and not so heavy on the others, and so I need to go back out and balance out and make sure.
And as far as the text messaging, you said that was kind of a primary method in this instance.
Well,
how do you get on there?
It's the fastest method.
Okay.
And it's open to all members of the UT. If you a student, staff, or faculty member at UT and you have a UT EID, then you can go on emergency management webpage and sign up. But you have to be a member of the university community. And
I just had a couple more questions here. This is kind of backtracking, but I just remembered this one. So for students that were in a building that was evacuated, did you tell them wait here or go home, or what was the procedure for students you're actually evacuating out of the building?
We had a lot of diffused leadership. So in some cases, professors said, my class is almost over at 10 o'clock, so go home. And the students went home. Some officers said, oh, gee, we can go home, and they went home. So we're kind of looking at that process to make certain that it's a uniform decision. The original intent was that by noon we would be able to start classes back up, but by the time we worked our way through the process, realized that a lot of people had left campus, and it wasn't, we just couldn't get the campus cranked back up again, so we kind of backed everything off except for the evening activities.
Interesting. And how would you rate UTPD's performance in this instance?
Well, I'd rate UTPD doesn't act alone.
Okay.
The campus reading, I would say, was very good. We can do better in our messaging, and that's the piece we got to work on. But when you think about it, we went from a dead start, and in about 10 minutes, dumped 165 buildings with, 50,000, 60,000 people out of those buildings and away from those buildings, with nobody panicking, nobody in a rush, nobody got hurt. Not bad.
Okay.
You take that any day.
Great.
We just need to talk to them better. Okay?
And just one last thing. Any last message you'd like to get out to the listening audience about this incident, or something that we've learned?
I think that, I know you're in the dripping area, and I would think that any of your listeners that have children or staff or family that are working at UT can feel pretty comfortable and confident that we've got good systems here. We do an awful lot of rehearsing and practicing those systems. We hope we never have to do it again, but it's never a question if something happens. In this day and age, it's kind of a question, okay, when is something going to happen? But I think that our responses on this incident, if you go back to September 28, 2010, when we had the shooting on campus, are pretty consistent and pretty good, and I think that we demonstrate that we can take care of the staff, faculty, students, visitors, whoever's here on campus.
Okay. Well,
Good.
thank you so much for
Thank
meeting
you.
with me, Dr. Harkins.
Did Beth take care of your parking there?